And at the back of the release of those crime stats, we now turn our attention to how truck drivers have been affected by crime. And we're joined by Road Freight Association CEO Gavin Kelly. Mr. Kelly, good evening. Thank you for your time. So South Africa has recorded about 327 truck hijackings, and this is between April and June of 2026, despite that 21% decline from the previous year. Just how concerned is the trucking industry about the current level of truck hijackings?
Good evening, Polisi, and good evening to all your viewers. I think that's a major concern, and it always has been a major concern. We've spent a fair amount of time over the last couple of years working quite closely with the South African Police Services and local and provincial security authorities and networks to try and bring this number down. It is something that is a real scourge, and it brings into sharp relief the types of dangers that our drivers face. And I'm quite sure that neither you nor I would like to be in a situation where somebody takes either the vehicle or the goods on that vehicle away from us by force. And in many instances, the drivers are injured. So it's something that is really, really worrying. It's a good sign that it's been coming down, but I think everyone would agree 327 odd hijackings, reported hijackings over the 3-month period is not something to be laughed at.
And interestingly, Mr. Kelly, Gauteng accounted for about 67% of all the truck hijackings that were recorded nationally. Why does the province remain such a major hotspot, one? And what are the key risks that are facing the truck drivers on its roads, two? And just how do we mitigate all of this, particularly when we look at some of these pressure points that we talk about now?
Some good questions on a Friday evening. Well, first of all, the first question is quite easy to answer, and that's because Gauteng is the main node in the country. So a number of routes that travel both through the country itself and then north into Africa, whether it's going up north or east or west, so going to Congo DRC, or going up to Kenya, Malawi, or going up Zambia and further north into Africa, transit through Gauteng. It is the hub of South Africa, the industrial hub of South Africa. Many industries and many stagings in terms of depots are in Gauteng. So the majority of freight vehicles move through Gauteng at some stage or another. It's the easy target. So that's the first reason why it is the hotspot. The risks facing drivers, well, there are a number of risks, and to answer that sort of question, we could be here all night. The first is going to be really around two aspects. It's where drivers rest, so they park overnight, or where they then types of areas they go through where security is thin, where there isn't a good camera network or security network to cover them, to make sure that they are always seen as we go along. And then secondly, obviously, it's the types of cargoes that they may be transporting, because it's not all cargoes that are hijacked continuously. There are definitely target types of cargoes like food or high value electronic equipment, vehicles, liquor. Those sorts of things are amongst the high values of petroleum type products. And so that's the type of thing that really brings drivers at risk.
And interestingly, for us to perhaps try and get a grip of what is currently happening now, especially with the freight industry there, I'm assuming that we'll need all hands on deck, particularly when we look at getting these trucks safely from point A to point B. We'll need law enforcement to come in. We'll need the monitoring from the monitoring side on the truck side as well to also be on point. Just how do we actually get to that, particularly when we look at the fact that this is not really the first time that we are having this conversation, Mr. Kelly, and there needs to be something done, and urgently so?
Well, first of all, I think any truck operator, owner, transporter needs to understand which are the hotspots in South Africa. There are a number of platforms. Some of them are easily accessible. The Road Freight Association has a platform where we identify what the hot spots are, the red spots are, the crime active areas are, and drivers or their owners need to make sure that they're aware of those and try to avoid them. The second thing is to have a reliable system in cab for the driver, whether that's some sort of panic button, whether it's a telematics type of tracking device, reporting device, that make sure that the truck stays on the routes that are designated. So if they go off the routes, that's immediately goes through a system so there can be a backup. And then finally, it's really to network with one another to ensure that they are in safe areas, that they have some sort of backup. It doesn't always only have to be your company. And then not to do the things that could expose you to risk. Who are you? Are you parking next to? Who's following you? Be aware of that. Don't take passengers on board unless you know exactly who they are. Don't take passengers on board if you're not allowed to do so. But to make sure that what you do, you're aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and also just a quick one before I let you go, you know, as we speak about some of these factors, Mr. Kelly, and let's just hope that this is a conversation we'll be saying at least some sort of headway has been made to ensure that, you know, the numbers at least decrease next year. Just what do you say to some of the truck drivers that are now watching, particularly when we look at the association's perspective on driver safety? I know that you just given some tips now, but just as a whole, because there's also been conversations about how drivers have to grapple with so many issues as they are on the road. I'm talking about fatigue and many other elements that they have to deal with at the same time. And then this also sort of adds a spanner in the works, that element of crime.
Absolutely, in policy. First thing you need to do is to be aware of your surroundings and to be aware of what's happening around you. You need to make sure that you abide by your maximum driving hours and that you rest as you need to rest. So that won't necessarily always sort out the fatigue, but it will definitely bring into play a far better awareness. The second thing is that definitely both the owners of the vehicles, the operators, the companies need to make sure that drivers are well versed, well trained in where the possible danger areas are going to be in their everyday life, and to make sure they understand what the alternatives are. And finally, as we always say, the life of a driver is far more important than the cargo they have. So do not put up a fight. Don't think you can be a hero. Think about you, your safety, your health, and you know there's always a chance that if you resist, there's going to be far more violence. So you need to think about that, but you have to be aware of what's happening around you.
Mr. Kelly, great to chat as always. I must thank you so much for your insights on the program. That's from the Road Freight Association. That's the CEO, Gavin Kelly, there joining us on the program.